So today we're beginning Mishnah, second Mishnah in the second chapter. And this Mishnah is authored by Rabban Gamliel, the son of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. I'm just going to put it on the screen. We're just going to do the first part of the Mishnah today. Tells us Rabban Gamliel, Bino shel Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi Omer. Rabban Gamliel, who was the son of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. So if you remember, we actually had previously we had Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel or Rabban Gamliel. So the name Gamliel, just like we name people after people who have passed on, so they also name people. Rabban Gamliel was in that family, descendants of Hillel. The previous Mishnah was Rebbe, who was also known as Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. It's the same person. So this is the next generation. It's Rabban Gamliel beno shel Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi Omer, Yofe Talmud Torah im Derech Eretz. The study of Torah is not just good, it's nice, it's beautiful with Derech Eretz. Here it translates it as a worldly occupation. So we'll see about that in a moment. Sheyigias Shenehem, going for both of them, achieving them, but exerting, working towards both of those, Mishakachas Avon, causes sin to be forgotten. So we have this idea of Derech Eretz. I'm sure many of you have heard the term before. We use the term Derech Eretz generally nowadays. The term Derech Eretz is a way of saying act like a mensch, have some Derech Eretz, have some manners, right? That's the generally. However, the word Derech Eretz can be used in different formats and depending on the context. So it could also mean, as it says here, an occupation, whatever your occupation is, or malacha, maybe you can call it, the work that you do, or just the general concept of parnasa, of making a living. So there's a similar idea, making a living, or the actual profession or occupation that you have. And then, as we said, the more for us familiar term of derech eretz being to be able to have manners and the way you conduct yourself socially, interacting with other people, basic manners and ethics. So in terms of understanding this, it's telling us that Talmud Torah to go together with Derech Eretz, that you want to have the study of Torah together with it. So we'll start with Rashi, who he interprets it as being here making a living or engaging in some type of business. And he's telling us that if a person is learning Torah, they're studying Torah, and they're also engaging in a business to make a living, so then you won't end up doing things wrong, because you're not going to, first of all, you're going to be studying Torah, so that's good, but also you're going to making a living. You won't need to worry about what someone else has that you don't, oh, I don't have enough because I can't afford it, so I might want to steal from someone else. You won't have a desire to steal. And therefore, that's what's keeping you away from sin. If on a simple level, the sin would be taking something that doesn't belong to you. Rabbeinu Yonah also looks at it as work, and he explains, and others as well, that the Yetzer Hara, right, the evil inclination will not rule over you. He's not going to have power over you if you're learning and also earning at the same time, if you're doing both, because different explanations to this, but one of the things is we say about Torah is mateshet kocho. The Torah it weakens you. Like, you're working so hard at it, it sort of like makes you physically weaker. And when you're working to make a living, you're very busy. You're keeping busy. Things are occupied. You don't have time to think about sin. You don't have the time or the strength to be able to get involved in negative behavior, and therefore you won't do that. Another angle is also that you'll be busy, so you won't, as he calls it, sit back and relax, which causes you to forget Hashem. When a person has nothing to do, that's when they get in trouble, right? When you're sitting there and you're twiddling your thumbs, what can I do now? And you're bored, right? In general, forget about from a Torah perspective, we know from kids or even adults, especially immature ones, right? When they have nothing to do and they're looking for something to do, a lot of times they find things to do which are not positive, and they end up getting in trouble that way, right? So it's the same thing with all of us, that when we are not busy, when we're not doing things that are productive, we could end up doing things that either are a total waste of time, or even worse, we could end up doing something that's destructive. And that's the thing. So therefore, the Yetzer Hara, he's sitting there going, "Oh, you've got nothing to do. I got all kinds of ideas for what you can do." Um, there's also, as we talked about in terms of from the ethical point of view, so for example, the Meiri, he interprets it in that way, that here it means social conduct, and on a very simple level. Just because you study Torah doesn't mean you don't have to have ethics and morals and behave yourself in proper when you're dealing with other people, right? So that's an essential, and if anything, maybe even the opposite. It's so important from a Kiddush Hashem, from sanctifying Hashem's name, that someone who represents the concept of Torah certainly has a responsibility to be even more careful in their behavior, because everybody looks at them and says, "Oh, this is what Torah is." Right? So proper ethical conduct is an essential. And if a person is going to conduct themselves in a proper manner, then other people will say, "Oh, that's very nice. That's look, and they'll trust you and they'll engage with you." And that way, people will also, from your point of view, if you generally conduct yourself in a ethical manner, so once in a while you slip up, someone says, "Okay, we all make mistakes." But if you generally don't, then we don't forgive you your lapses, because that we say that's the way you are. Okay, so the other idea here, though, is talking about forgetting sin, or you're going to end up not being able to sin. So the Maharal also looks at it as an interesting idea. He says that when you're making things happen, so things that are not complete, so you're working on them and you're making them better, right? That's what happens. Things can continue to improve until now it's finished. When something is a finished product, then that's it. Finished means it doesn't get any better than that, right? That's what finished means. So it means then if something is complete, the only way now is down. It's like when you hit the top, there's only one way. You can't go any higher. You can only come down. So too, when something's complete, the only thing now is it can be negative, is that something bad can happen to it. So if a person stops striving, if you stop trying to accomplish, then you think that you're acting basically, "Oh, everything's complete. I'm finished. I don't have to do anymore." So because I'm not striving anymore, in which case the only thing that's going to happen now is negative. So he said that sets in motion the destructive forces. He's talking about, again, the Yetzer Hara or the Satan, etc. But when a person is exerting himself, and the wording of the Mishnah is Yegiat Shnehem, the exertion in Torah and in your occupation or Derech Eretz, you're working at it. As long as you're working at it, you say, "Oh, I'm not a finished product yet." So then you're working on it. Once you say you're a finished product, then the negative forces can sweep in there and say, "Oh, you're finished? Okay, so there's nothing to improve." And then only negative things are going to happen after that. And Vilna Gaon points out that if a person does not continuously strive to rise higher and higher, so what ends up happening is you're going to end up lower and lower, because it's like a conveyor belt or something, or where if you're it's going in the opposite direction. If you stand still, you're going backwards. You have to keep moving in order to stay ahead of the game. Okay, so one other point for today, and that is that of the Tiferes Yisrael, and he mentions that there's the idea, again, Torah learning with Derech Eretz representing the idea of Musar, humility, and that Torah learning is only good when you have that element of Musar along with it, when you have humility with it. And through having that, if you're going to be a humble person, you're going to be someone who is again, Musar, you have the Musar, you have the ethics, and you have the Torah, then you will, in a sense, forget the ability to sin, because you will then have learned what the proper path is, and you're acting on that proper path, and that will protect you from coming to sin.